Good morning and welcome to Kelly's Anesthesia Tips. So, first confession. Doris and I have not yet scheduled time together to do our nutshell meetings from both the AIA BPM in May and the FAAA a few weeks ago in just June 6th, 7th. So we are both still working on coordinating our schedules for that. It's harder than it seems. So whilst I'm waiting, I had an excellent idea this morning that was given to me by another coder, and that is Leslie Dennis. We are not related, though we are anesthesia friends. And I'm going to leave this one up because hopefully this is going to be my screen shot for my YouTube. So basically what I did was just Google medical coding books for anesthesia, and I plugged my name in there because I kind of wanted to see if there was this old book that I had written a while back for Decision Health, and I didn't see it, but I did see, a lot of other good anesthesia coding books, and Doris and I, who are going to be doing the In a Nutshell together. And then my YouTube channel, which I hope anesthesia coders everywhere have the opportunity to use. Having come from a background of on-the-job training, I love this opportunity to be able to share a lot of what I've learned over the years with new coders. Seasoned coders, we still need things like this as well. That's why we still go to the meetings. All right, so the idea from Leslie ties into what's keeping Doris and I busy right now is that we're both catching up on our review and auditing work that we kind of get, set to the side when we do the meetings. So this morning I read from Leslie Buckner Dennis. She has Stateside Medical Solutions, which is on my billing list in alphabetical order. If you've watched that YouTube, you know why. So what Leslie did was repost from a physician. This is why I think it's important that we know that a physician did this, because I love the post, but I did take a little bit of creative license with what I agreed with and didn't, so I'll share that as well. So Dr. Manisha, I'm going to say Oha and hope that that is correct. Shared this about coders. So you just type codes, that's what they think. But here's what I actually do, keeping in mind this is a physician. Read like a detective, decode like a lawyer, think like a clinician, and interpret like a data analyst. And there's more. I'll give you this link if you want to go. Or you can go be friends with me or Leslie and you'll get this anyway. But here it was like a little cartoon thing, and I tested it first. It does not run automatically. You kind of have to do the pages with it. So rather than do all of that, I'm going to take the part that I was a little bit exceptioned to. And here's what it says. I think like a clinician, understanding what's written and what's left unsaid. And here's where we have a problem when we're not clinicians, we're just coders. So what I said to Leslie is, I agree. But when auditing, I often see overreach by coders trying to interpret what the physician means. And that's not what we're supposed to do. A physician looks at things from a different perspective than we do. We have to live by our coding rules, which granted are a little bit more lax for anesthesia. We don't have to code nearly as much as the surgeon, inpatient, hospital people. We kind of just get to code why they're having anesthesia and then getting to explain maybe comorbidities or why they're having anesthesia, maybe a child, delayed learning or something like that. But our coding is a lot less difficult in my eyes. So we do have to make sure that what we're doing is not overreaching and trying to give the patient something that they don't have because there was no relationship established. Because in our world, it's a little bit different. You hear this all the time, not documented, not done. There are some things that you're allowed to make or establish relationships with and things that you're not. So here I'm going to give you your next tool, and this changes every October. and it's the ICD-10 coding guidelines. Now, if you don't have your book yet, or you wait for your book, these are available online from CMS. And what I do love about these online guidelines is that we can look up words. So it's a lot quicker to get to information if you're looking for something specific. So I'm looking for relationship here, because this is where I understand that we sometimes have, just from an auditing perspective, people who are reading things into the record that's not there. So there's times when you can do it. So if the word with or in or due to, they can presume a causal relationship, but it will tell you, a little bit of explanation to say when you can and when you cannot. So I'm just going to hop around a few for you to say they do allow you to use with or in to mean associated with or due to. And sometimes, like complications, we get a lot of these with anesthesia, where we're doing some of those T codes or others we know when there's a complication if they say that there's, infection, inflammation, displacement, things like that. So they will allow us to do some things, but not others. So in some cases, they say, if the condition alters the course of the surgery, you can report the complication. If it's not clear, ask, and that's always been a given with us for documentation services, or documentation of anesthesia services. Now, I say this because I recently ran across one where there was a code for the prenatal period and or perinatal period. There was no indication in the record itself, but the coder kind of made an assumption about that. And I went straight to the guidelines to say, yeah, okay, this is not what we're allowed to make those relationship associations with. All right, so this I'll just leave up to you, so I'm going to give you these little links here. But what is our biggest problem is reading things into when we don't have to. And we do have to be careful, because we are the keepers of this data. Let me get back to the back where it says why it's so important. Does it impact your payment? Sometimes. Can it trigger compliance audits? It can. And does it shape healthcare data? Yes, but to me, one of the most important on here is you might give a patient something they don't have if you're not careful. And that's why we're so careful with these. So when you're doing that data interpretation, realize there are consequences, and be very cautious about reading things into the record that are not there. All right, off of that, thanks Leslie for that excellent idea. Before I close out, there's two things I want to do. I'll give links to all of this. One of them is remind you we're getting so very close to the commercial fee survey deadline. I've done multiples on this to explain why it's so important to participate. So now I'm going to reach out to coders. If you could, and you're in a position to ask your administrator or your physicians or anyone that you have communication ability to discuss this with, because it does ultimately help all of us, is find out whether or not they are participating in this survey. If you're a billing company, hopefully you're participating on behalf of some of your clients, because the data comes in and is analyzed and is used for so many things. Benchmarking, supporting what, fair payments can be related to when we have so much difficulty getting Medicare to understand. And I think they just kicked us to the curb again about, not giving doctors raises for so long. People look at physicians as, not being deserving of payment for their services, but that's how they run their businesses. That's how they pay their coders. So this is important to us too. So I'll give this link. The deadline's July the 1st. It's very easy to do. They give instructions and the survey. It's your 5 top. You do have to go back a little bit because there are some restrictions about how old the data has to be. But, any questions, you just reach out to h.olcaba at asahq.org. That's Helen Okaba, and she's fantastic. Working with the ASA as the Director of Payment and Practice Management, Doris and I are also blessed to be able to help with questions for the ASA members, but she's the one that you reach out to for the survey information. And with that, I will close us out with what I like to say, and it's true. When we are kind to one another and generous with our knowledge, we help others, which in turn helps our specialty, as does supporting anesthesia meetings. So be kind to one another, generous with your knowledge, and thank you guys very much, and thanks for your patience.